Basketball scene, the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers went down to West Virginia in overtime last night, but the loss did not diminish the brilliance of guard John Battle. Battle, a native out of Washington, D.C., turned in an All-American type performance. He scored from all angles, with defenders hanging all over him like that. Ooh, I like that. And following this upcoming slam, he comes up with a new move. Watch this, Tom. Well, it's not really new, but it's cool anyway. It's called the low five. Here it comes, the low five. I like that. Holman Harley's jumper and subsequent foul shot sent the game into overtime, and the Mountaineers won it 76-71. Battle finished with a game-high 28, 18 coming in the second half after he received 5 stitches over his right eye. Gutsy performance by John Battle, who definitely deserves some All-American recognition this year. Tomorrow, Rutgers visits the nation's capital to play another Atlantic 10 Conference rival, George Washington University. Earlier this week, I spoke with Tom Young, the Scarlet Knights head coach, about center Mike Brown, who hails from East Orange, New Jersey. Brown is Mr. Everything for GW.
They got Mike Brown in the middle, the big guy who everybody says will be an NBA player. He's a strong, physical guy, shoots it fairly well, great rebounder. And he carries that basketball team. They look to him every time down the floor. Not every other time, not every third time, but they look to him every time.
The Colonials will be looking to avenge
that. And
Philadelphia at 9 against Villanova. In Piscataway at the Atlantic 10 tournament, yesterday's winners St. Joe's and Temple meet in one semifinal. It's the Battle of Philadelphia at 9 o'clock. Then Rutgers, a 69-67 winner over Massachusetts, meets Duquesne, an upset winner over #1 seed West Virginia. On the campus of the Scarlet Knights, Donald Russell of UMass gets things on target for the visitors. Then all-conference guard John Battle goes baseline for Rutgers. Battle leads 4 Scarlet Knights in double figures with 17, and despite a couple of late mistakes, Rutgers, with John Battle in front, moves into the semifinals with a 2-point win. The New Jersey Devils have moved at least
winning. The camera did not.
59-51 with the victory. The Owls get an NCAA berth. First half, Rutgers in dark. John Battle, the conference leading scorer, puts it up, puts it in, but Temple led by 125-24 at the break. Now, in the Atlantic 10, they've got the three-point shot. Eddie Coe from Temple lets it rip. He hit 3 in a row. He was the game's most valuable player. What killed Rutgers, they went 0 for 14 at one time from the field. The defense wore down, and Tim Perry of Temple hits it. Temple over Rutgers, 59-51 the final. When the bids come out tomorrow, Temple is going to the NCAA. Now, let the record read that the Knicks broke a...
Back to basketball. College tournaments at Rutgers. Temple over the Knights for the Atlantic 10 title. 59-51 was the final. Temple in the white. The Owls took an 8-point lead early in the second half thanks to 2 3-pointers from Ed Coe. Coe with 16 points today. Most valuable player for the tournament. That honor went to Granger Hall. So did this rebound and basket. Hall with 10 points. Temple now 24-5. They get an automatic bid to the NCAAs. Rutgers finishes with a 16-14 record. 3 other major conferences and hit its first 5 shots. Here's the first.
And right, stop all-conference big man Granger Hall. That they did, but they didn't stop the Temple guards. The Owls win the bid to the NCAAs 59-51. First, sophomore Nate Blackwell makes the move for the baseline jumper. Yes, Temple by 2 early in the second half. Then Blackwell feeds Coe for the jumper. The Temple backcourt combines for 25 of 34 points in the second half. Owls win it by 8. At Freedom Hall in Louisville.
Who cares about
Time this season, Temple defeated Rutgers, the final 59-51. The Scarlet Knights finished 16-14. The 24-5 Owls get an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. Temple led by Nate Blackwell, who scored 18 points. John Battle of Rutgers, the Atlantic 10 scoring leader, popped for 16. Rutgers down by 1 at the half. In the second half, with 2 minutes left, Temple ran off 7 on
Atlantic 10 tournament title.
with the Flyers, and Tom Young has resigned as basketball coach at Rutgers, taking the job at Old Dominion. Young coached 12 years for the Scarlet Knights, highlighted by that 76 team that went to the Final Four. Rutgers will have an announcement on a new coach within short time. That's sports. Back to Chuck and Sue.
Thank you.
Alley out of the Bronx in the midst of that run. Nice pass from Mark Price. Sweep for the ACC convincingly. Of the Pacers off this
At the Garden. Triumphant return home for Bronx native Bobby Cremins as Georgia Tech destroys Rutgers 85-46 the final score. Tech on offense first half around the outside. Watch Mark Price, All-American guard, good feet inside. Bruce Dalrymple, easy bucket. The game never close after the first 5 or 6 minutes here. Tech on the steal, off to Craig Neal, lead pass Dwayne Farrell. He scores it. Mark Price, John Sally, 16 apiece. Tech breezes 85-46. Pro basketball
talks about his first season with the Scarlet Knights. The Atlantic 10, the tournament gets started this week, and Craig Littlepage, the first-year coach at Rutgers, taking his team to the tournament for the first time. You got UMass at UMass Tuesday night?
Right, Fred. We'll go up to UMass. I think it's a 7:30 game up in Amherst, and it's a team that we split with, winning at home and losing up at Amherst about 10 days ago.
This is the time you can take a team that went 2-16 in the conference and say, new season, let's go for it.
Yeah, there's no doubt that we've been planning for this stage of the season, Fred. We had a number of injuries during the course of the year. Our best perimeter shooter, Ricky Datica, has been out since mid-January with a broken foot, and we've had some other key injuries that have really curtailed our progress. So I guess about 3 weeks ago, we've been kind of planning for this stage, and right now everybody's undefeated. One game, one and done, as we say, and I think that we're going to be ready.
Craig, you could be in the tournament.
Well, that's the ironic thing. A team can go into its postseason tournament 0 for the season and then get hot and get an NCAA bid. So really the only thing that we need to do right now is to just feel good about ourselves in terms of the kind of basketball team that we can have. And 4 games and we can find ourselves in the NCAAs.
This is my favorite time of the year.
Oh, there's no question. When you look at all the great conference tournaments, whether it be ACC or Big East or Atlantic 10 throughout the years, there have been so many Cinderella stories through the history of postseason conference tournament play. And I think that we're going to have some interesting play in the Atlantic 10.
Speaking of Cinderella stories, 10-year anniversary of the team that went undefeated for the season, made it down to the Final Four. You had a celebration of that just a little while back.
Yes, 2 weeks ago, the Final Four team came back, and I believe we had just about the entire team intact. There were several players that weren't able to make it, but we had the majority of those guys back. We also had a number of players, letter winners from other teams back as far as the mid-40s, and played a small exhibition game. And it was great to see the Final Four team together in particular, but also to have some of the other letter winners and some of the other people that have meant so much to Rutgers basketball come back and for the first time play in the Athletic Center. See, years ago when the Final Four team and the teams beyond that played, they played in the old bar in College Avenue gym. So this is the first time that any of these guys have played in the Athletic Center.
Yeah. Do you miss Penn? I mean, you coached at your alma mater, and you've had so much success down there. Why the choice to come up to Rutgers?
I think just the challenge. Anytime you get into a situation, which I did at Penn, and we looked down the road a couple of years and saw a young team, a team that had come off an Ivy championship and had played pretty well in the NCAAs last year, I felt pretty comfortable. And but there's something inside of me that I guess that competitive instinct and that yearning to climb another mountain, so to speak. And the opportunity to build something at Rutgers, which I felt had a great deal of potential, was there. And although from a wins and losses standpoint, it certainly has not been a great year, I still feel very good and encouraged about what we're going to be able to accomplish down the road. We've gotten tremendous support from our fans. Yesterday, we had in fact, our biggest crowd of the year in the last home game against St. Joseph's. And the people have hung with us all year long, even given the tough circumstances of struggling the way that we had. So I'm encouraged by what I see, not only in terms of our support, but the way that the players have worked. And I think that we're going to get it going before too long.
Okay, up at UMass Tuesday night, and then Thursday you would play down in Virginia?
Right,
West Virginia?
West Virginia. We would go to Morgantown and play a team that we played extremely well against down there back in the early part of January when we were quote-unquote healthy. They got out to a 16-point lead at halftime, and then with 4 minutes to go, we took a lead. So I think that we can play with these teams, and we've played well against just about every team in the league. We just have not played well enough to win against the upper echelon.
Then semifinals and finals at the Meadowlands.
Right, that would be Saturday and Monday.
First and 3rd of March, I believe.
Right, combined with the MAC conference also having their semifinals on Saturday. I believe they're in the afternoon, and then the finals. And it'll be really a unique concept in that the finals of the MAC and the finals of the Atlantic 10 will be on the same night, and it'll be the first time that I know of that two NCAA representatives will be decided on the same night in the same building. So it's a big night.
Madness is upon us.
And we're looking forward to it.
All right, Craig Littlepage, first-year coach at Rutgers. Thank you for stopping by.
My pleasure,
We
Fred.
appreciate it. Sports Update is going to continue right after this.
Rhode Island 87-77. Tom Savage 19 points. And finally,
Rutgers hosting Rhode Island. Minor disagreement from both sides, but the coaches come onto the floor and they cool things off. Rutgers in the white uniforms, they cruise to a 10-point win. Here comes Craig Carter as time runs out. Nice way to cap the game. 87-77 Rutgers. Tom Savage led Rutgers with 19 points. The Kansas
cast of poor performance. The Kansas cast of poor performance is far behind. Suddenly, the Lewis Brown Athletic Center is a fun place to go, especially when you can see the likes of Miles Dixon dealing to Anthony Duckett for the dunk. Duckett had 16 last night, and here comes the Knights' high man on the night, Tom Savage. His 19 leads 5 Knights in double figures, leads Rutgers over Rhode Island 87-77, and check out head coach Bobby Wenzel going off last night. He's got good reason to get excited. Rutgers is now 3-0 in Atlantic 10 conference play. The Knicks and Nets are off tonight with a turnpike. Hey, what exit you live? As Rutgers goes after the 18th-ranked West Virginia Mountaineers. They were painting Piscataway scarlet and white for the Knights. Rutgers guard Rich Datica behind the back to Tom Savage. He misses the first time, but then bangs bodies with the Mountaineers before scoring 2 of his game-high 18 points. Rutgers leads by 4 late, but then Datica throws it away. This is Steve Berger with the steal. He pulls up and hits the jumper, plus the foul. Gail Catlett's West Virginia Mountaineers survive 60-58 at Rutgers, running their win streak to 16 straight. That's the longest in the country. Now, down to Philly for
could handle at Rutgers today. But the Mountaineers held on for their 16th straight victory, 60-58. Here we go. Close throughout. Tracy Shelton, West Virginia, retrieving the ball, feeds Bronx native Chris Brooks for the Jams. But now watch this. Mountaineers up 60-58, closing seconds. Rutgers has a chance to tie or win. Craig Carter takes the ball right to the basket. The ball rolled out, and it was that close. West Virginia survives, are now 11-0 in the Atlantic 10, 60-58. Meanwhile, the leaders of Kentucky are just that, rumors according to Rose. Now, something wonderful is going on down at Rutgers. Basketball coach Bob Wenzel is right in the thick of it, too.
It's been great, and it really surprised me and I think a lot of people that the fanaticism of the fans was going to be this level.
Rutgers students interested in their higher education can't lower themselves to pay attention to the Temple introductions last night. Thursday, the rack was rocking. The Scarlet Knights rolling. And a nice touch by the Knights seniors coming out giving flowers to their moms before the game with Temple. Rutgers comes out all fired up, building a 19-5 lead with the help of this floater from Craig Carter. Rutgers by 9 at the half. John Chaney's Temple Owls fight back within a point early in the second half. Then the Knights counter with a 7-0 spurt. Ricky Datica's three-pointer ends it. He combines with Tom Savage for 33 of Rutgers' 41 points in the second half. Final, Rutgers over Temple, 77-64, perhaps the biggest win in about 5 years down at Rutgers. Datica and Savage each with 25 to lead Rutgers. And talk about turnarounds. Last year at this time, the Scarlet Knights were 5-20. Right now, they are 13-12 and getting better all the time. A title fight tonight. I
think that, you know, with the talent we have, and if we mesh well together, that we're going to be able to, you know, accomplish what we did last year, you know, if not more.
Every young kid that's growing up that wants to
book. But there was plenty of magic in Piscataway, where Bob Wenzel took over a Rutgers program that was down. All he did in his first season was win the Atlantic 10 Conference Championship and take the Scarlet Knights to the NCAA tournament. This year, coming off that 18-13 season, Wenzel has 4 starters returning and 2 outstanding transfers. Jerry Henry has the story.
What a difference a year made for the Scarlet Knights last season. After finishing at the bottom of the Atlantic 10 Conference the season before, Rutgers, under new head coach Bob Wenzel, won their last 8 games, including the Atlantic 10 Championship. That gave them an automatic trip to the NCAA tournament, and Rutgers hoops was alive and well in Piscataway once again. That was last year. Of course, this year the resurgence continues with even higher expectations as they add a couple of transfers from Syracuse, as well as a couple of freshmen that will mean even more depth to the Scarlet Knight bench.
Rutgers! Rutgers!
As the 89-90 season approaches, the Scarlet Knights, who captured the imagination of fans last year, will enjoy that same enthusiasm this time around. That was evident when this year's team was introduced during the very first practice.
This year, the expectations will be higher, and we'd like to achieve again at a high level. And we have some talent here, Earl Duncan and Keith Hughes, who are transfers from Syracuse. We have 3 new freshmen, Donnell Lumpkin from South Brunswick, Mike Jones from Morrisville, and Mark Redden from Massachusetts. So we've got some cause for optimism in the talent that we have, and how the season goes sort of depends on how these guys react and how the chemistry develops between them.
The newcomers will join 4 returning starters, including junior forward Tom Savage, the Atlantic 10 tournament's most valuable player. Savage finished the season averaging 20 points a game.
Playing overseas this summer really helped me a lot as far as my defense and my shooting. I think that, I worked real hard on my ball handling this summer, so, I should be pretty much well-rounded coming into this season.
Senior Anthony Duckett is another returning starter. He had a team-high 20 block shots last season while playing both forward and center. Junior guard Craig Carter started all 31 games as a sophomore. He was second on the team in assists with 88. His backcourt mate, senior Rick Danica, returns as the team's leading three-point shooter. He shot 41% from long distance.
We're definitely have more depth than we did in the past years, and we have a lot more experience than we did. We got a chance, playing the NCAA tournament and playing big games, such as the championship game here, and that's only going to help us out when we have to go up to Syracuse and play in front of 30,000 people.
Is there a danger of people taking it for granted because it did happen so quickly?
I think so, yes. I think people will take it for granted. Their memories are short. 13 months ago, this team was 7-22, and a year later, they're 18-13, and everybody's wearing NCAA watches. I think we have to keep that in memory. There are players who will be playing on this team who experienced both of those seasons, a lot of them. So the players, I think, will be mature about that, and I hope the people who follow the team will be mature about it as well.
Certainly Pete Carrill's Princeton Tigers were not to be outdone.
Watch this, a lazy pass by Duncan, which is knocked away by Lafayette. There's one turnover. Here comes another. Watch Savage just kind of lally that one into Duckett. You got to have crisper passing. Turnovers a problem for the Knights early on. The Leopards hang tough because Rutgers gave them an opportunity with the turnovers. But watch his 3 consecutive three-point shots bury Lafayette. Here's Duncan from the top of the key with a three-pointer there. And watch Rick Datica. He does the same. Datica deadly from three-point range. Swish, he hits that one. Here comes Tom Savage. It's his turn to hit the three-pointer. Savage, he has it. Bullseye for the 3. Then Savage shows that he can score from inside as well. Watch the reverse by Savage. Beautiful move there as he kisses it off the back of the rim. Watch the dish by Carter here to Datica, who sends it outside, and then Ricky, wide open, hits the three-pointer. Rutgers on the fast break again. It's the Syracuse transfers. Duncan to Hughes, who lays it up and in. Nice maneuver there by the Scarlet Knights. Watch Carter go baseline as the Leopards fall asleep on baseline D. Carter takes it in and scores. Watch this pass very closely. Carter over the shoulder to Duncan for the three-pointer. Yes, from three-point range. Then Carter again, who had an absolutely brilliant game, pitches it outside to Duncan, who shoots the jumper again. Keith Hughes gets involved in the action. Off the Duncan miss, here's Keith with the offensive rebound and the baseline follow. It's good. Watch Carter again as he goes inside, puts it up, yes, and it counts, and he goes to the line to complete the three-point play. Carter even doing it on the offensive boards, tips it up and in. What a game for Craig Carter. Datica on the alley-oop to Hughes, who puts it in. Then watch this play. Hughes on the block. Datica dives, saves it, tips it back to Duncan, who throws ahead to Hughes, who slams it through. That play was all Rick Datica, I'll tell you that. And here comes Datica again with the move inside, puts it up and in. Bob Wenzel has his first win of the year. The final is 78-69, Rutgers over Lafayette. All right, Rutgers wins that one, their first win of the season. However, they did not follow it up with a victory. Now, this past Saturday night, a tough place to play at St. Bonaventure. And as we look at the score, St. Bonaventure over Rutgers, 75-72. Savage had 20, but Hughes had only 6. Michael Burnett led the way for the Bonnies with 16. Kenrick Hamilton had 17. The Bonnies scored the last 7 points of the game. 21 turnovers for Rutgers in the game. That's just way too many turnovers. They had 19 turnovers against Lafayette. This is a bad sign for the Knights. They were also out-rebounded in the game and shot only 44%. So the Bonnies are 2-1. The Knights are 1-2, but more importantly, 0-1 in the Atlantic 10. St. Joe's on Wednesday, Delaware on Saturday for Rutgers. We've talked about 0-1 in the Atlantic 10. What about the Atlantic 10 Conference? Well, a couple of weeks ago, the Atlantic 10 Conference had a preseason media day, and we spoke with Commissioner Rod Burdovich about what he sees happening in the conference this year.
For the first time, we have more than 2, quote, players. Everyone says we were a 2-team league. Now we're 4, 5, 6 deep. The bottom's getting stronger, and that's the key to being a strong conference.
As you look at the top of the conference, you mentioned in the past it's always been 2, 3 teams, and now you have teams that came out of the pack a little bit. Penn State or Rutgers kind of emerged last year, and that's a good sign for the conference.
It definitely is. You look at our tournament last year where our 3rd and 4th seeds reached the finals. I mean, again, no one really expected that. Those 2 teams thought they might be there, but no one really expected it. They thought it might be a Temple, West Virginia final again. But when you can have more than 1 team and more than 2 teams making a run at it, it creates competition. It makes every regular season game mean that much more.
What about the bottom of the conference, Ron? Are those teams beginning to get a little bit stronger?
I think definitely. If you look at the recruiting efforts from last year, they've upgraded their schedule. They've already signed several players early this year. We're definitely stronger top to bottom. Matter of fact, we're as strong as it's ever been top to bottom.
What's the general feeling among your cohorts, if you will, about the conference? Is it a good, strong feeling?
I tell you, it's the image and perception is as high as it's ever been. And there's no doubt that last year's championship game, drawing the highest rating on ESPN, has helped. There's no doubt Rutgers' emergence has helped. But Rutgers, Penn State, and again, those middle-level teams and bottom teams getting stronger, it has to help. I mean, you're only as strong as your weakest link, and our weakest link is pretty strong right now.
You talked about that championship game on ESPN last year, and it did get an extra rating. What kind of reaction have you gotten from outside the conference about that championship and about the way the ratings came out?
Everyone talked about the emotion in the building. It's a great game, first of all. Teams play great, well-coached teams. But just everywhere I went for the next couple of weeks, and actually all summer, people talk about that game. I mean, that game, again, had the highest rating. Of course, we're proud Pepsi's the sponsor. And people on the West Coast coming home from work, they weren't going to turn it off. People, it was such a good game, and a 2-point game the entire way. Everyone was excited about it, and a lot of people are still talking about it.
The Atlantic 10's profile has suddenly emerged. It certainly has one of the nation's most prolific players in Temple's Mark Macon. Macon and the Owls are picked as the #1 team in the conference this year, and he feels very confident in his club's chances.
What about the conference a little bit? Last year, a couple of teams came out of the pack, if you will, that hadn't been in the forefront. Penn State, Rutgers, those type of teams. Does the conference seem a little more balanced to you this year?
Well, yes. The conference gets tougher every year, I think. And Rutgers is going to be tough. Penn State, every team in our conference is going to be tough. Everybody's going to be going at everybody like tigers. Like tigers fighting chickens. And that's the biggest thing.
Like tigers fighting chickens? We're going to try to decipher that next week. Mark Macon, like tigers fighting chickens. Next week we'll hear from the Atlantic 10 coaches. And very quickly, college soccer.
We can have them be
quickly. College soccer.
We can have them be mentors. And Bill, there are a lot of similarities between the coaching situations at Rutgers and St. John's. Lou Carnesecca is a St. John's alum. Bob Wenzel came back to Rutgers after being a most valuable player in his senior year and had spectacular success in his first year as the coach of the Scarlet Knights, winning the Atlantic 10 Conference Tournament, going to the NCAA. It had to be a terrific year for Rutgers.
It was just a fabulous season for Rutgers. I don't think any time you can have so low expectations and such great achievement in one season. Going from 7-22, 3 years straight, to 18-13, and the Atlantic 10 championship and the NCAA tournament was fabulous. Tom Savage was a key player for us in this drive. He was one of the best three-point shooters in the United States last season and became the MVP of the Atlantic 10 Conference tournament, and hopefully will be a leader for us this year as well.
I think that we'll have a very good team. You know, the guys that we have coming back and the guys that will join us this year will help us in trying to attain the goal of getting into the championship again this year.
Ricky Datica was a guy who really became our team leader last year and also was one of the three-point bombers on our team and a guy who is hell-bent for election on every play. Craig Carter started at guard last year from Bronx Science in New York City and has some of the funkiest looking shots you'll ever see, but makes them. We do have two other players who will make big contributions, Earl Duncan and Keith Hughes, transfers from Syracuse University. And I will say that we are a very well-traveled team. My first year we went to Spain. This year we'll be going to the Rainbow Classic in Hawaii, and hopefully we'll be in Denver for the Final Four.
Well, you certainly can't accuse Rutgers of having a marshmallow schedule. It's one of the toughest in the country.
Well, it's a very tough schedule outside of Atlantic 10 play, Bill. They have an opening game at Syracuse. They have games against Notre Dame and St. John's, and it could make for a misleading one-loss record.
Well, one team that has really dominated.
An outstanding team in the MAC Conference. However, Rutgers was up to the task and got excellent play out of their backcourt and from Keith Hughes as well. Rutgers wins and goes on to the second round. As we pick up the action in this one, Rutgers off the opening tip and a fast-paced game in the first half. Anthony Duckett with the rebound right here. He gets it up ahead to Earl Duncan, who shovels ahead to Keith Hughes, takes it to the hoop and scores, and Rutgers in a running game with Holy Cross. Watch Duckett with the rejection here. Knocks the ball out of bounds. A fine game for Anthony Duckett. Mike Jones had 18 points in the game, and that ties a career high for the freshman. Here he takes it to the hoop and then follows up, tips it up and in. And Rutgers got off to a great lead. Coach Wenzel liked what he saw. A little bit later on, watch Duncan go inside to Hughes. Turnaround jumper is good in the paint, and Rutgers up by 12 early. Datica finds Hughes, cutting on the baseline. He lays it up and in. Keith Hughes, again, with an excellent game. Darrell Smith, off the Datica miss, gets the rebound. A beautiful bullet bounce pass underneath, and Hughes puts it up and in. Dwight Purnell had 26 points for the Crusaders of Holy Cross. Here's a three-pointer bullseye from three-point range. He has been terrific all season long, and again in this game, deadly from three-point range. Lumpkin comes right back and puts it in for the Knights, and at halftime, Holy Cross did lead it in this first-round NIT game. All right, second half action. Here is Darrell Smith, finds an open Lee Perry underneath, and Perry lays it up and in. 58-57, Rutgers in the lead with 9 minutes and 12 seconds remaining. Purnell, though, again, he's got it from three-point range, unconscious from that three-point line. Datica comes back and answers. A long three-pointer for Ricky Datica, who had 13 points in the game and shot 4 for 6 from three-point range. Here's Datica again. Watch him circle around the defense. Wide open. He says, I'll take that shot. Bullseye. He's got it. Another three-pointer for Ricky Datica. Then later on, Holy Cross had to foul, and Datica at the line hits the free throw, and Rutgers in pretty good shape. Then Darrell Smith with a nice steal here, takes it to the hoop and slams it through right there, and then Rutgers holds on to win it. The Scarlet Knights win it. The final, Rutgers 87 and Holy Cross 78. All right, Rutgers wins it, and the Knights are 17-16 on the year now. Of course, they'll take on Fordham tonight. Datica and Jones combined for 31 points in the game, and we mentioned it was an outstanding game for Keith Hughes, who finished with 24 points as well. Anthony Duckett also doing an outstanding job in the pivot position as Rutgers went to the bigger lineup, not able to utilize the three-guard lineup that they had used earlier in the year with Craig Carter out of action because of the ankle injury. So now, in the NIT, as we take a look at the tournament pairings, of course, Rutgers
cut up in Glasnost last night as the Soviet club drilled the Knights in exhibition play 96-67. Bob Wenzel had suspended Earl Duncan and Darrell Smith for a game, and Mike Jones is still injured. But Brent Dabb stepped up to score 18 at the center spot. And Rutgers standout Keith Hughes had 29, 2 with a nice move to the hoop there. But the Soviets ran away. Sergei Babkov, who had 40 points on the break here, behind the back to Verdanikov for the club's third win in 7 games against Atlantic 10 teams. Well, Trenton State is...
It was Monmouth over Army 52-49, and Rutgers opened the season with an upset win over number 23 Missouri 68-60. Rutgers got 20 points from forward Keith Hughes as Earl Duncan finds him in the paint despite missing most of the first half for foul trouble. And junior Darrell Smith made the big plays, coming up with the steal and takes it in for 2 of his 8 points. Forward Tom Savage with shoulder problems hits a 3 here from the corner. He finished with 11 points. But the play of the night, Earl Duncan with the no-look pass here with just over a minute left, finds Mike Jones in the paint. Jones sinks it. Rutgers holds on for the win. What a big one for them and Coach Bob Wenzel. What a way to start the season.
Visits Lehigh. Bob Wenzel's Scarlet Knights survived a scare in beating Division II Bridgeport last night, 90-84. Brent Dabbs returned from a sprained ankle, grabbed 11 rebounds, and scored 26 points in his Scarlet Knight debut. Dabbs, a transfer from Virginia, played inspired basketball, keeping the Knights unbeaten in 3 games and drew Wenzel's praise.
Played in the game and scored a lot of points and got a lot of rebounds and didn't practice for an entire week. Didn't practice yesterday even. All he did was run up and down the floor to test his ankle. Thank God he did play.
Wenzel very happy.
Rutgers. This goes back and forth all night. Rutgers' Craig Carter will hit a jumper in the final seconds, and we're going to overtime. Bernard Blunt tries to keep the Hawks in. A nice drive there. But Rutgers will come out on top in overtime. Tom Savage with a savage slam, and the Scarlet Knights hold off the Hawks' upset bid, 75-69. The Sixers tonight are resting. They'll
Fieldhouse against Rutgers. Bernard Blunt, 13. It's fine backcourt that he's got there, John Griffin. But they're young, and they're not very big. Craig Amos had 14, and the Hawks at one point led by 16. Coming up, nice play. However, there's 7 seconds left. Hawks lead by 3. Rutgers, Craig Carter, and you got a tie game, 62-62, and they went into an overtime. And it was Keith Hughes who kind of took the game over at 31 points, and Rutgers wins 75-69. They're 4-0. The Hawks are 1-4.
Buddy Rutgers kept on running all night long. Here comes Craig Carter, and all Rutgers went in overtime, 75-69.
Night. 75-69 in overtime last night. The Scarlet Knights came back from a 12-point halftime deficit. The hero was Craig Carter. He hit this 3-pointer to send it to overtime, and Rutgers climbed to 4-0. 58-45 win Rutgers that brought the Tigers to 7-0. The looks on the Scarlet Knights' faces tell the story. It was a frustrating outing for Bob Wenzel and company Saturday in Piscataway. Princeton, as impatient, worked the clock and shot the ball well from outside. Chris Marquardt nailing a 3. Sean Jackson also found the range as Pete Carrill's Tigers beat Rutgers for the 5th time in the last 6 meetings. Tigers off to their best start in 21 years. They play number 1 UNLV on Wednesday night. Monmouth also a good, followed by a St. Peter's Niagara nightcap. P.J. Carlissimo's Pirates are 5-1, coming off a win at Villanova. Seton Hall has won the last 4 meetings with Rutgers in a series that dates back to 1915.
I think it's a great rivalry. I think the kids look forward to the game. They know a lot of players on Rutgers. I think the fans, it means an awful lot to them. I think Bobby would agree. The game itself, to both of us, is not as important as our conference games. They're 3-0. In the Atlantic 10, that's a lot more important, and we're 1-0 in the Big East. But I think, you know, for Saturday night, it's an important game. And when you play another one of the Jersey schools, these are the people you live with. It's an important game.
It's also New Jersey's version of the Big East against the Atlantic 10, with the Scarlet Knights coming in with a 5-1 record. But Rutgers coach Bob Wenzel is singing the injury blues. Guard Earl Duncan is out with an ankle ligament problem for 10 days. Assorted other bumps and bruises leave Wenzel low-keying the matchup.
Athletically, I'm not sure it's going to be a great game in terms of our team being really banged up. Earl Duncan won't play. Brent Dabbs is hampered. Keith Hughes is hampered. Lumpkin and Redden are both hampered with ankle problems, sort of like Seton Hall was at the beginning of the year. And they've recovered and they're healthy now, and we're going through a real tough time right now.
Festival last night at Madison Square Garden. Rutgers lost this 3rd straight game, losing to Maryland 86-81. It was a game where the Scarlet Knights found themselves down by 11 in the first half. Sophomore Donnell Lumpkin, in his first start this season, paced the Knights with 21 points with 3 there. Rutgers jumped out to an 8-point lead in the second half. Senior Keith Hughes with the slam. He finished with 19. But Maryland had a weapon in 6'8" guard Walt Williams, who led all scorers with 30 points. He slams home 2 of them, as well as the door on Rutgers late in the game. Scarlet Knights take on Brigham Young tomorrow night in the consolation game. Rutgers now 5-3 on the season. Elsewhere,
didn't let 7'6" freshman Sean Bradley get in the way too much tonight. First half belonged to Rutgers. On the move here, Keith Hughes finishing up with a flying rim rocker. Hughes with 24 points. Cougars' big man did make his presence known as Bradley blocked 4 shots on the night. Jesus, that guy big. Rutgers would not be denied, though, running out to as much as a 20-point second-half lead, for winning it by a final of 85-70. At Florida's Suncoast Dome,
Here, freshman Glenn Stokes from Wyckoff steals the ball and goes in for an easy hoop. Rutgers won the Holiday Festival consolation game 85-70. In the final,
with the sports report, and it looks like Rutgers has some regrouping to do.
A lot of regrouping to do, Kent. In fact, it could be a long weekend for the Rutgers men's basketball team. They face Delaware tomorrow. That's after an embarrassing 16-point loss to Duquesne last night at Rutgers. How bad was it? Well, Rutgers only hit on 5 of its 23 field goal attempts in the first half. Keith Hughes had 15 points on the night. Rutgers led by Brent Dabbs with 18. But the Dukes were determined to snap a 6-game losing streak, and they out-hustled the Knights on the boards. Patterson's James Hargrove led the way for Duquesne with 22 points. Patterson faithfuls loved it, but Coach Bob Wenzel couldn't believe what he was seeing. Rutgers with 23 turnovers en route to a 78-62 loss, and they fall to 6-4. Elsewhere,
252. We told you last night Keith Hughes would be the key, and Hughes feasted on the thin Irish front line. Hughes had 25 points and 7 rebounds as Rutgers won its 3rd straight. NBA news, the Nets host RU football. It really won't help Bob Wenzel in the basketball program. They stay in the Atlantic 10. Yesterday, they were drilled by #1 UNLV, 115-73. The Scarlet Knights kept it close early after winning their 6th straight Friday night against Temple. But the Runnin' Rebs had too much firepower for Rutgers and probably a few NBA teams as well. Larry Johnson sparking a 12-2 run. And Stacey Augmon had a triple-double, 27 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists. How's this for transition basketball? Johnson with the steal. Anderson Hunt nails a 3 for a game-high 29 points. It was so easy, Jerry Tarkanian didn't even need his towel. Has won 9 of its last 10 games. The lone loss came at the hands of #1 UNLV. Last night, the Scarlet Knights shot lights out in a 95-87 win over St. Joseph's, and Jerry Henry has details.
It would be a record-setting night for Rutgers in the scoring column with all 5 starters in double figures. Guard Earl Duncan led the way with 23. Forward Keith Hughes would add 21, and junior Darrell Smith finished with 20. In all, 69% shooting from the field, a single-game record for the Scarlet Knights. But more importantly for Rutgers, another big league win.
We set another record for the school. We've won 8 straight league games, which we broke the record that we set last year, which was 7 straight league games. The defense led to a lot of breaks, and that's been sort of a characterization of our team in the last number of games we've played. The defense has led to fast break baskets, and we're converting at a good percentage.
Defense sparked by junior Darrell Smith, who had a career night. In addition to his 20 points, Smith had 6 rebounds and 2 assists.
The rap on me has always been that I can't shoot from outside, and tonight I just said I'm going to relax. They're not guarding me, so I kind of took it as a challenge when they were sagging off of me and playing Keith in that junk defense. So I said this is an opportunity for me to prove that I can hit the open shot.
The win gives the Scarlet Knights an 11-3 record in the Atlantic 10, and that's good enough for at least a first-place tie with Temple as the race for the conference championship heats up. Jerry Henry, New Jersey Network News, Piscataway. To prove it's the team to beat in the Atlantic 10 Conference. The Scarlet Knights are tied with Temple for the conference title. They beat UMass yesterday in overtime, 103-96. Thanks to senior Keith Hughes, sprained ankle and all, it was no stopping him yesterday. Hughes hit 5 of his first 6 shots and finished with 33 points along with 16 rebounds. Coach Bob Wenzel also got 22 points from guard Earl Duncan as the Scarlet Knights go 13-4 in the Atlantic 10, a game ahead of Temple. They wrap up the regular season with Penn State Wednesday. A Rutgers win will give them the regular season title. The Atlantic 10 tournament gets underway.
Little basketball, all New Jersey showdown in one Northern season title, routing Penn State 92-70, and Jerry Henry reports.
Rutgers coach Bob Wenzel found himself in a too-close-for-comfort battle with Penn State in the first half. There were 11 lead changes, but the compound problem, center Brent Dabbs would have to leave after 6 minutes and 2 quick fouls. But the Scarlet Knights would hold a 2-point lead at halftime. But first-half problems would prove to be a second-half advantage. Dabbs returned with fresh legs and a career performance with 22 points and 7 rebounds.
It was pretty good because I was fresh legs and I wasn't winded and I wasn't like tired or anything and drowned out. I was just like I started the game again.
And it was like new life for the rest of the team as Rutgers had 4 players in double figures led by Keith Hughes with 24. And the second half could be best described as a dunk contest as Rutgers pulled away and would not be denied their first Atlantic 10 regular season championship since 1983.
In a way, it looked like an NBA game, you know, where you watch an NBA game, a team misses, and the opposition turns it into a layup. And that's what we did an awful lot in the second half. And our guys just played tremendous. You know, we played great defense, which led to all those exciting plays.
So the Scarlet Knights go into the conference tournament on Saturday as regular season champions. But there's little time to celebrate because they may have to win the tournament to assure themselves of an NCAA bid. Jerry Henry, New Jersey Network News, Piscataway.
And tonight, 10 tournament thanks to St. Joseph's and a last-second overtime win last night in Philadelphia. Coach Bob Wenzel watched his team run up a 9-point lead with 3 minutes left in the game behind the shooting of guard Earl Duncan, who finished with 31 points, a career night for him. The Scarlet Knights also got 21 from Keith Hughes, who jams here, but the lead vanished after some costly turnovers, and Brent Dabbs will tie the game with seconds left in regulation. It goes into overtime, and St. Joseph's guard Rap Curry, who finished with 25 points coming up here, canned a three-pointer. With 2 clicks left on the clock, St. Joe's wins it 90-87 and put a big dent in Rutgers' hopes of an NCAA bid. Now they'll just have to trust the tournament committee, and that could be tough. Elsewhere, St. Peter's...
Scoop next.
This month in New Jersey.
For us now. Yes, tourney time. 5 New Jersey schools are in postseason play. Seton Hall, Rutgers, Princeton, and St. Peter's made the NCAA, and FDU is going to the NIT. Now at the State House this morning, in honor of a record 4 New Jersey schools making the big dance, the NCAA, and all the postseason excitement, the coaches huddled with Governor Jim Florio, who made it officially
March Madness month in New Jersey.
All right, so Seton Hall, fresh from its first Big East Tournament championship, will open play Thursday. The Pirates head west, the 3rd seed in UNLV's region, to face Pepperdine at 2:30 in Salt Lake City. Now today, the Hall... Meanwhile, Rutgers, one of 3 Atlantic 10 teams to make the tourney. The Scarlet Knights face Arizona State Friday at 2:30 in Atlanta. RU got a 9 seed, and respect from the selection committee. Bob Wenzel was confident all along.
I felt all along that we would get our bid, and we have a system by which these things are decided. There is some subjectivity to that system, but there's also a great deal of objectivity to it. And I feel that the players earned the right to be in the tournament, and they earned a right, whether they were in the tournament or not, they earned the right to feel good about themselves and have Rutgers feel good about itself by having such a tremendously successful season.
Speaking of success, St. Peter's Rutgers at Princeton. Bob Wenzel's Scarlet Knights open with a blowout win against Wagner Saturday, but Pete Carrill's Tigers are another story. Princeton has a 29-game home winning streak and a unique style of play that gives you fits.
Of course, they're always difficult to play. They're a team that runs good stuff, and they zone you, and they slap the ball, and so forth. And we're going to have to shoot well, you know, and be patient and try to play good defense.
Well, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and basically the only thing that's on my mind is just beating Princeton, whatever it takes, you know, by any means necessary. I just want to beat Princeton.
Tip-off 8 p.m. tomorrow night, live on NJN. Hockey tonight.
College ball. Scored 3 points, but it was Steve Worthy off the steal for Rutgers. Rutgers won it 46-41, breaking Princeton's 29-game home winning streak. And in Atlanta,
against 6th-ranked Seton Hall. Of course, last night, Rutgers beat Princeton 46-41. It was that kind of night for Pete Carrill as the Tigers saw their 29-game home win streak snapped. Princeton was led by Matt Eastwick's game-high 13 points, but the Tigers shot just 38% from the floor. Rutgers kept its composure, built a 5-point lead at the half. Alley-oop to Steve Worthy there. Bob Wenzel's Scarlet Knights led by 3, but the Tigers had the ball in the final minute when Steve Worthy makes the steal and races down court, putting the exclamation point on a Rutgers win, their first Ajad win in 15 years.
With the help of this guy right next to me and a lot of other guys out there, it's a great game, and it's nice for New Jersey college basketball. So we've got two years in a row breaking big streaks on teams. It's very satisfying.
Worthy told NJN's Roy Hinson what was going through his mind on that final steal.
I was going to try to pull the rim down.
And he almost did. Other college
with a 3-0 record.
Other college
with a 3-0 record after a stunning upset win over UNLV Saturday night. Bob Wenzel's Scarlet Knights stormed back from 10-point down at the half, and Rutgers with 5 players in double figures, including 19 for Steve Worthy, who tied the game with seconds left at the foul line and sent it into overtime. UNLV only scored 3 points in OT, and Rutgers pulled it off 91-85 before a capacity crowd.
It's just a great win for Rutgers and a great win for our young team, and I think that all the people, you experienced it. It's a wonderful place for college basketball, and the crowds are great here, and the enthusiasm is great, and it's just a nice night for us.
It was a great win for them. Good game.
All right. Well, finally
to find out either tonight. Rutgers hosts Seton Hall in a game that has all the makings of a great contest. Bob Wenzel's Scarlet Knights got a big win at home Saturday against UNLV, staying undefeated and confident after 3 games. Beating Princeton a Jadwin, then stopping the Runner Rebels will do that for a team.
I think anytime you win a game against a team that's a good team, and we've done that twice in a row, Princeton's a very good team also, I think your players get confident. And I think our guys have a right to be confident right now. And I think they feel good about how they're playing and what they're doing. And a lot of them are making very good decisions in the game. And we've won against 2 opponents that are at opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of style of play.
Meanwhile, PJ College basketball, Trenton State beat Montclair
in New Jersey. Pat with highlights and reaction coming up next. And in our New York Bureau with tonight's sports report. Patrick?
All right, Kent, we're going to talk about a battle for bragging rights in New Jersey, a game that lived up to its billing as 12th-ranked Seton Hall beat Rutgers 77-72. Second largest crowd ever at the Athletic Center, 8,966. The majority cheering for Bob Wenzel's Scarlet Knights. Rutgers led 26-23 as Darrell Smith hit the offensive boards en route to an 11-point night, and that fired up the rack. But Seton Hall kept its poise. Freshman Danny Hurley handling the pressure defense while scoring a career-high 13 points, count it, and the foul. Hurley was able to run the Hall's offense, and Gordon Winchester benefited with a career-high 18 points. Watch the ball movement here. Hurley to Luther right in the middle, over to Winchester. 42-34 Seton Hall at the half. First road test for P.J. Carlissimo and company. But Rutgers came back. Steve Worthy leading the Knights with 13 points, and the crowd got back into the game. Then Donnell Lumpkin hit an NBA three-pointer, and Rutgers would cut the lead to 1. Seton Hall's Jerry Walker responded with 2 straight baskets. Walker had 15 points. And freshman John Leahy celebrated his coming out party, 13 points, as Seton Hall hung tough and won by 5.
We took 3 or 4 or 5 steps forward tonight. Like, that's what we've been looking for. But I mean, in terms of young kids playing on the road in as difficult an environment as you're going to play in, that that we couldn't ask for anymore. But and I'm being sincere. If it had gotten away from us, we still played well, and we would have gotten beat by another really good team. Tonight, it just went our way.
I'm pleased with the effort of our players. I'm pleased, obviously, with the crowd. It was a great crowd. It was a terrific game. I'm happy the 12th rated team in the country didn't come in here and blow us out.
I think we did a pretty good job. I mean, Jerry Walker's a great player. Luther Wright's a great player. They have a lot of quality inside players, and we held our own with them. Well, it was a great test for us because it was a composure and it was a loud building. The crowd was really into it, and we got a young team, and we really handled pressure real well.
It was the battle for New Jersey because Rutgers beat Princeton, and we've been working all week because it's a big game for us. We already lost 1, and we didn't want to lose another one this early in the season.
But Hurley may have cracked ribs, while DeHare suffered tendon and ligament damage in his shooting hand. Meanwhile,
after saying he had to say no to the Tampa offer. In college basketball, Rutgers takes on number 6 Arizona tonight in Tucson. The Scarlet Knights advanced to the Fiesta Bowl tournament final by beating Maryland Saturday. Arizona has a 67-game home winning streak going. But the Knights have managed to end some streaks this year at Princeton and at UNLV with a 32-game winning streak. Rutgers is now 5-1, and the players attribute their success to team chemistry.
The team chemistry is great because we have a lot of players with big hearts. The desire to win. They don't like to lose. Everyone goes out and plays hard every game. And I believe that's hard to find in a college team, you know, because some people who's not getting in, you know, are a little down and not cheering for the people on the floor. But in this case, everybody on the bench is like they're in the game because they're cheering as if they're running up and down the court with the five that's on the court.
Elsewhere, Seton Hall improved its record to 7-1 by beating Florida.
The sports can
not quite for number 6 Arizona last night in Tucson. The Scarlet Knights were overwhelmed by the Wildcats, 103-80. Rutgers coach Bob Wenzel trying to snap Lute Olson's 67-game home winning streak, but he would need more than 22 points from Steve Worthy to do it. Worthy led Rutgers. Arizona with too much size, and they got 60% shooting from the field, mostly high percentage shots like the jam. They also out-rebounded Rutgers 40-29. The Scarlet Knights fall to 5-2 on the season. They are back in action Thursday with Duquesne at Rutgers for the beginning of conference play. Elsewhere,
Patrick.
All right, the topic college basketball. The Atlantic 10 Conference gets underway tonight as the Scarlet Knights host Duquesne. Rutgers comes in at 5-2, Duquesne at 5-3. Joining me now, Rutgers head coach Bob Wenzel. Bob, of course, coming in off the road trip, a win over Maryland, and then a loss to Arizona, but certainly positives coming out of those games.
Well, a lot of positives from the sense that we've played 7 games, and the only 2 teams we've lost to is Arizona on their home court. They've got the longest win streak in the nation, and of course Seton Hall when we were back here. So if NJN does more of our games, we'll probably win all the ones that you televise. But we're struggling a little bit because right now we're a little road weary and a little banged up. But it's the start of the Atlantic 10 season, and it's the start of 4 straight home games for us. So we're excited about it.
Of course, we're going to have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights game against Temple next Tuesday night, live at 8 o'clock on NJN. But, Bob, what about the conference? How do you feel about it coming in? People say Temple, UMass, and the Scarlet Knights.
Well, there's a lot of balance in the league. The teams that had been struggling a number of years ago, like Duquesne and St. Joseph's, have certainly improved themselves a great deal, and we've lost a lot of players, and I think there's tremendous balance in the league right now. Also, the league is having great success against outside competition. West Virginia beats 2 Big East schools. We beat Maryland, and we beat Vegas, and there's a lot of those kinds of examples out there right now. So it's going to be extremely competitive, and we can't get to the point where we think we've had some good success early and rest on those laurels. We've got to get after it every single night.
How about Steve Worthy, the job he's done out of Trenton High School, the junior college transfer, in being your leading scorer thus far?
Steve was all-tournament in the Arizona tournament, and he's done a tremendous job for us offensively and defensively. And he's a guy who's had success wherever he's been, and hopefully he'll continue that success with us right here at Rutgers.
All right, well, good luck tonight against Duquesne.
Thank you very much, Pat.
All right, lots of other college basketball as well tonight. From last night, Rutgers improving to 6-2, 1-0 in Atlantic 10 play, beating Duquesne by 16. Mike Jones had 20 points for the Scarlet Knights.
Atlantic 10 showdown at Rutgers tomorrow night as the Scarlet Knights take on perennial rival Temple. Rutgers got in some work this afternoon after beating Delaware Saturday 101-78. The Knights are 7-2, and Temple is off to a 5-2 start after edging out West Virginia Saturday. But Rutgers players familiar with Temple say, hey, forget the records.
Having to battle them twice every year and 3 times my freshman year, it's a really big game for us, and we always want to come out and have a good showing against Temple because in our conference, nationally, they're always the team that's on top in the ratings, so we want to come out and show the nation and Atlantic 10 that we're a team to be reckoned with.
We're always competitive because they have such a great coach, Coach Chaney. And hopefully we'll just come out and press and run and do the things that we normally do and get a win tomorrow night.
And you can see Rutgers Temple right here on NJN tomorrow night on our Tuesday night game of the week at 8 o'clock with Pat Scanlon and Roy Henson. Takes on Temple tonight in Piscataway. It's the NJN game of the week. Temple is coming off a win over West Virginia on Saturday. An emotional 63-62 victory with time running out. The Owls are 5-2 and much bigger than the Scarlet Knights. And Rutgers coach Bob Wenzel knows his team is in for a test in an early conference battle.
Temple is a team that's a traditional power in the Atlantic 10 and have done very well this year. They had a surprising week last year. Last week they lost at home to Rhode Island, but then won on the road, which sort of erases that deal. And the only other team they lost to is Kansas, which is the number 4 ranked team in the country. So they are a formidable team, and it's going to be a hot night in the RAC.
And we'll have all the action tonight on NJN at 8 o'clock. Pat Scanlon and Roy Henson are your hosts, and they are standing by now with the preview of the game. Guys?
Actually sitting by, or I would be much smaller than Roy Hinson, Jerry, but yes, getting ready for Temple Rutgers. Roy, what does this rivalry mean to the Scarlet Knights playing the Owls from Philadelphia?
It means a lot, first of all. When you have two perennial powers playing in each other's backyard, you want to have bragging rights. So what you do is you try to think about how can we get one up on these guys.
Rutgers without starting point guard Mark Redden. The question is, does Bob Wenzel go with Damon Santiago, a freshman who played very well against Delaware on Saturday?
Yes, he did play very well. My suggestion, if I was a coach, I would go with him. I thought he played a great game against University of Delaware. He did a lot of good things well. And like I said, if I was a coach, I would put him in there.
Okay, Temple, a very physical front line, 6'9", 6'10". Rutgers, a smaller team, yet quicker. How do you see the matchup, Roy?
It's going to be a tough matchup inside because Temple is a bigger team across the front line. But Rutgers has that tenacious defense. I mean, I could be a little biased, but I think it's going to be a really good matchup. Real exciting game tonight.
As a former Rutgers All-American. Okay, Jerry, back to you. We'll see you at 8 o'clock on NJN.
Okay, guys, I hope you have your earmuffs. 9,000 there tonight. It's going to be really loud. Elsewhere tonight.
Rutgers 75-61 in Atlantic 10 play. John Chaney's Owls are 6-2, 3-1 in conference action as first-year player Eddie Jones got the starting role and scored a career-high 22 points. Bob Wenzel found his Knights trailing by 9 at the half, but Steve Worthy fueled a comeback that cut Temple's lead to 1. Worthy with the pressure, leading Rutgers with 19 points. But the Owls kept their composure, handled the Rutgers full-court defense. And RU shot 34%. They dropped to 7-3, 1-1 in Atlantic 10 play.
But I am not.
Last night, it was...
To the bounce back from Tuesday's loss to Temple when Drexel comes to Piscataway. Rutgers now 7-3 will be without starters Mike Jones, who is out with the viral infection, and Mark Redden, who is nursing a sprained ankle.
Rutgers lost to Utah State in the wee hours of this morning, 78-70. Bob Wenzel's Scarlet Knights tipped off at midnight for ESPN, and it looked good for a while as Steve Worthy led RU with 27 points. Rutgers led 16-8. But the Aggies were able to put together a 9-2 run early in the second half against Wenzel and company. Kendall Youngblood had 22 points as Rutgers slipped to 8-4. St. Bonaventure in Atlantic 10 play. Jerry Henry has a preview.
Rutgers will try to get back on track after losing to Utah State Monday. The Scarlet Knights, now 8-4 and 1-1 in the conference, are 18-point favorites over St. Bonaventure, which is 0-3 in the Atlantic 10. And Rutgers coach Bob Wenzel says there's no reason for a letdown.
And we can't overlook any team. And we're picked to finish 7th in our league. They were picked to finish 9th. And it's a game that's going to be a very tough game coming off this long trip. And hopefully we can get back on track and play well tonight.
The Scarlet Knights haven't played well consistently of late. At Utah State, 37% shooting from the field and 13 for 27 from the foul line cost them their 9th victory.
I think that we're the kind of team that depends on the night. You know, we're an inexperienced team and we're not very big. So as a result of that, we have to be hitting on a lot of cylinders to beat good teams.
Right now, the Scarlet Knights are in sole possession of 5th place in the Atlantic 10 Conference. Jerry Henry, New Jersey Network News, Piscataway.
9-4 by whipping St. Bonaventure last night, 85-51, and Monmouth beat St.
Joins us with the sports report.
5-51, and Monmouth beat St.
Joins us with the sports report and a big game for Rutgers at the Rack tonight.
That's right. You know, they need to stop that skid if they want to stay in contention. It's Tuesday night, and that means our game of the week as Rutgers takes on St. Joseph's in Atlantic 10 action. Pat Scanlon and Roy Henson will be your host, and Pat is standing by in Piscataway with the report. Pat?
That's right, Jerry. A big game for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights coming off a tough loss at GW. Rutgers now 2-2 in the Atlantic 10. And joining me now, Scarlet Knight head coach Bob Wenzel. And Bob played well on the road, well enough to win in a tough loss in overtime. How do you bounce back tonight against the Hawks?
Well, we better bounce back by rebounding better. And that was a problem in the last game, as you know, Pat. And it's a problem seasonally for us because we are a small team. And we've got to do a little bit better job of blocking out. We're playing tremendous defense, the best in the league. Teams are shooting 39% against us. And, of course, as a result of that, there's a lot of misses. So there's a lot of chances for both teams to get rebounds. But we've got to do a little bit better job in that area. And, of course, if we can get a good call down the stretch, you know, we might turn a loss into a win.
There were some tough calls against Rutgers at GW in regulation, in overtime. What do the Hawks present offensively that you have to deal with?
Bernard Blunt and Craig Amos are perimeter players who can play inside and outside, and they're outstanding offensive players. They also have a number of players that they use inside who are wide-body, 240, 250-pound guys. So we're going to have to play very good defense. We're going to have to pay a lot of attention to Amos and Blunt. And on the other side, we've got to make our shots.
All right, Bob Wenzel, good luck tonight. That's coming up live at 8 o'clock on New Jersey Network, Rutgers and St. Joe's. Jerry?
Okay, Pat. Elsewhere, Seton Hall.